Welcome to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. This podcast is a ministry of the Small Town Network. We exist to make disciples, train pastors, and plant churches in smaller communities. My name is Eric Nielsen. I'm joined by my co-host, Tony Colomb. How's it going, Tony?
Pretty good. How are you doing, man?
Good, sir. Good to see you. And we have a longtime friend on the podcast today with us, Chris Goetz. How you doing, Chris?
It's a great day, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Good to have you. So for those who don't know, which probably includes everybody, Chris is on our board for the Small Town Network. And I just had the privilege of visiting him and his wonderful family in Garnett, Kansas. This last week, got to do some traveling around the Midwest. And all of us went to Ozark Christian College. And so to be back in that area in Missouri and Kansas and feel that humidity for myself again, it
Glad
was
today.
amazing. We had some
Ass.
good barbecue, met some fantastic people. Chris, why don't you just give us a quick bio, like family, kids, all that, how long you've been in Garnett, and then we'll start talking about your ministry pathway.
You bet. Been married for 21 years almost, and been with my wife Natasha. I'm thankful to have her in my life and ministry. I've got three children. My oldest Hope is a Bible college student at Ozark for just finished her freshman year, pursuing
Nice.
a degree in worship ministry. And then McKenna is going to be a senior this year here in Anderson County. She's busy with softball and chasing a young man around all over the place. Good
We don't want to
Christian
mention that.
for that. And then my son Malachi, he's homeschooled, but just finished up his freshman year, and he'll be sophomore this year. Uh, all of them are active in sports, and every one of them's active in our church, and we're real thankful for that.
Praise God. How tall is Malachi? He's a tall kid, man.
Yeah, I think every time he sleeps, he grows a half inch. He's about 6'1.5" right now. Yeah.
Is he me taller than you?
I wouldn't be surprised. Both of his grandpas are an inch taller than me, so
Yeah, I
one
was surprised.
one fit.
I think I saw him the last time I saw him, he was like maybe a baby. And all of a sudden he's like this towering kid. So anyways,
Mm-hmm.
we also would want to point out that you have some amazing bucks on your wall behind you,
Oh,
and
thanks.
I got to see him in person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
dude,
my favorite.
that one right there, right behind your shoulder is like,
Yeah.
holy
that's a
cow.
that's a dandy. I mean, that's almost starting to become a prerequisite for this podcast as well.
You gotta
Yeah,
show
you
it
can
to
see
I
him.
like
have some in
you can
my
see
office too,
my
but
little mule deer.
they're over
Oh
there.
yeah,
So,
nice. I
so
like it. We were
yeah,
just talking about having the last guy we had on actually is co or part owner of a he's like ownership of like a distribution for a camouflage and like hunting gear company. And so we're like, I think we're gonna have him back on and do like a hunting episode and like tell like
yeah,
tall tales, like tell our best, hunting whopper.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
because everybody
When
who
include
hunts has
me in
got
that
some
one.
story. Yeah. There's
when are
always some
deer
story.
when are
What's
deer
that?
seasons for you guys where you're at in Kansas and Idaho? When does deer season start? Like rifle?
Ours is October.
October, same. Yep.
Yeah.
We have this really cool thing called all season tag. And so locals can get a tag in August and it goes all the way through the second week in January, sometimes the fourth week in January.
Not
So
fair.
you can hunt any season, any tag, or basically if it's like muzzle loader, you have to hunt with a muzzle loader or a bow. I can hunt with my bow the whole entire time, but I like to kill them when it's cold. That's my favorite. Colder anyway, not
Yeah, for
100
sure.
degrees like today.
Man.
Well, we are jealous. And if we get that episode, we'll have to call you.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, tell us about your, kind of your like your journey to faith. Like, where did you
Mm.
grow up? Did you grow up going to church? Like, when did you, commit your life to Christ? Kind of tell us that part of your story.
Yeah. I grew up in Monmouth, Oregon, and that's actually how I knew Tony. We went to camp together out in Sweet Home, Oregon. That was our
Camp
connection.
Koinonia, baby.
Oh, you guys were Koinonia? Okay.
Yeah.
Koinonia means fellowship. Don't get me started
Fellowship.
on the song, dude.
I do remember the song.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Real blessed past. I mean, I was as a kiddo, I grew up in church. My mom and dad both attended. My dad was actually youth pastor for a little while. Mom, just super active, sang at church. And I just remember a lot of good memories as a kid growing up at church. I hadn't made my commitment yet as a youngster, but wasn't long. Grandpa and mom both, and dad too, kind of had some conversations with me about that. And I gave my life to Christ when I was pretty young, but I don't think that I really dedicated myself to Christ until many years later um, when I was encouraged actually at Koinonia and got a nice push from my good friend Larry Osborne and
Yes.
kind of woke my faith up a little bit. I think I was at camp for the wrong reason that season, and
Like maybe like girls.
there were some pretty girls there.
There were
Wait,
some.
time out on Chris's
Yeah.
story. So I had this friend,
Uh-huh.
and we would go to camp every year together. And in middle school, our goal was to sneak a kiss from a girl by before the week was over. That was our actual stated goal. And I'm ashamed of myself. I wish I'd had like, Jesus in my heart more. Yeah, I know about going to camp for the wrong reason.
Oh yeah, let's be honest, a lot of guys at camp in junior high or high school make a decision for Jesus to impress girls
Yeah,
usually.
for sure.
And then they have a come to Jesus moment later on in life. But yeah, no,
Oh,
koinonia was pretty good ratio there for us fellas. There's no doubt about
yeah,
it.
for sure. So camp and your parents and your grandfather.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at camp, I had just sneaked a kiss from a girl in the swim pool, which we had been told at the beginning of camp that was off limits. And
Oh yeah.
recall Larry Osborne calling me out on it later on that day, and his little girl Judy, who might have been 3, she
Uh,
actually
yep.
uh, she told ratted me out,
She
and
was the one who ratted you out.
she did. I lied. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that.
Mm.
I
Well,
didn't sleep that whole next night.
I just had breakfast with Larry Osborne in Missouri last week,
Yep.
and we'll have to do a shout out to Larry because all three of us are people that have been influenced by the
Yep.
legend of
Yeah.
Larry Osborne. So
He was
I'll make sure
he was
I tell him that he got mentioned in the podcast.
yeah, he was my youth pastor. So yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, isn't
good
that funny? Small world.
small world.
So you're when you had that kind of like that moment where you realize it's time to get serious, how old were you?
Mm, I believe I was an eighth grader.
Okay. And that's when you got baptized or
I had been baptized before that, but
okay.
I actually rededicated my life that summer, and that's when my faith really started to take off. I remember being hungry for the word. I couldn't get enough of it. And maybe a little part of my heart wanted to still prove my dad wrong. But I think I was hungry at least and pursuing Christ. It wasn't until several years later that I really made my commitment to Christ. I was 16. And I remember I was actually at Christ in Youth Conference, feeling the conviction of the Holy Spirit that the path I thought I was supposed to take, which was electronic engineering, and everything was lining up to have this amazing job. And I was already going to some college courses for that, and ended up, God said, "That's not where I want you." And so I kept on doing that for just a little while, and then ended up when I was 18 going to Ozark Christian College in Joplin,
What's
Missouri.
the connection there? So how did you get connected to from Oregon? Because I grew up in Oregon, also went to Ozark, but I always
Mhm.
wonder like how did those connections get made? So how did you go from Oregon to Missouri?
Jeff Snell at
Yes.
the Koinonia Christian Camp. He
Yep.
was the speaker that week.
Yep.
And at the end of the week, I mean, I was kind of dual. I was, as a 16-year-old, I had already got my GED. I was done with high school, but I was taking college courses, and they asked me to come back to camp as the guy running the sound booth. And
Uh,
so I went back and got to sit in the back and slide those little slides back and forth. And at the end of the week, Jeff was like, "Chris, I don't think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, man. I think you're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be going to Bible college." And he handed me a scholarship to go to Ozark.
Yep.
And to be quite honest, I threw it in a shoebox, didn't think anything of it. I knew it was there. I didn't really plan on using it. I thought I had everything figured out.
Yeah.
About a week later, no, 2 weeks later, I was at CIY with the youth group, and at the end of the week, they called me up to the front of the stage and offered me a half-ride scholarship to go to Ozark Christian College. And
Hmm.
now it's like, wait a minute, maybe I
Yep.
need to reevaluate. And I still wasn't sold yet, but I was real close to being sold. And I remember Sean Moyer, my youth pastor at that time. he called me up and said, Chris, I'm taking a trip with some kids to go to Bible college in Joplin, and you've got a full ride scholarship, brother. You got to go. And so I jumped on board with that, flew out to see his family in near St. Louis, and then we drove down to Ozark. And I recall on that trip, Mark Scott actually challenged me. He said, Chris, nobody gets this opportunity that you have. He goes, you're going to go to school for a whole year for free. Like that doesn't happen here. So you need to at least pray about it. And I said, well, I've got a contract with Hewlett Packard and I've got this contract with Oregon State, like to finish my degree up. And I don't know if I can get out of it. They were paying for my college. And so when it was all said and done, he goes, well, either you already know your answer or you could just give them a call and see what they have to say.
Hmm.
I prayed
So
about it
that's,
for a few minutes
yeah.
and I did. I called them and they let me out of my contract just
That's
free
awesome.
and clear. Didn't even make me pay it back. And school
The
was about
Lord, the Lord heard and intervened and kept you from becoming an Oregon State Beaver alumni. Praise God. Praise be
I
his name.
do have some credits from Oregon State, but
Wait a minute
I
now.
don't
I'm
have
gonna
a
edit this
degree from
out. I'm gonna
Oregon
edit
State.
this out.
Before the blasphemy continues here, it's funny
Forgot the
because like
Ducks fans.
I forgot like how similar some of our stuff is. You know what I mean? It's been so long since we've seen each other, being students at the same time at Ozark, but just being from Oregon, the Larry Osborne influence, the Jeff Snell thing, because I too got a half a year tuition at CIY a couple years prior, and then the year Jeff Snell was there was like my last summer at Koinonia, and I got a scholarship as well. So I
I
had a whole
remember that.
year of tuition too. So it was like at the time I was a day away from signing a commitment to join in the National Guard ROTC program and
Mhm.
going that route, going to Oregon State, going into like geology or forestry or something. But my dad, being a Vietnam vet, begged me not to go into the military. He just because his experience wasn't good. So,
Mhm.
and he wasn't even a Christian. He's like, just go to Bible college. I was like, all right.
Wow.
So I did the same thing. I was like, well, I got a year free. I might as well go all the way out to Joplin. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's just it's crazy how like God starts orchestrating little things and puts pieces into place when we think we've got our vision lined out. He's like, psych, I want you
Yeah.
doing this instead. So pretty cool. I've always loved that connection and similar story. But
So you moved to Joplin. Now, at some point, you actually were you in National Guard? Is that what you were in, Chris?
Eventually, I did join the Army. Yeah, I was
Army
a
National Guard.
reservist for when I first started, but
And did you do that in Bible college or when you came back to?
correct. While I was at Bible college, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they
Tell it.
promised me they'd pay for my college and I only had to work for 2 weeks in the summer. And then my unit was literally right next door
right,
to the Bible college. And so
right.
they actually paid me, which for me, it was the only quiet space in my entire world when I went to Bible college because the dorms on Williamson Third were not quiet. And so I uh I would go across the street and answer phones for the military unit, and I was the only one there. So I would do my college class or my homework over
Mark.
there where it was quiet and answer phones, and then come back to the dorm for playtime and hang out with all my buddies. It was great.
No, I never was in the student housing because I moved to Ozark married. Two quick things. No one offered me any scholarship. I think they charged me double. So I'm
That's
not sure
fucking
what plan you
double.
guys were on.
Probably
And
how I got
then
mine paid for.
I was never in the dorms, but wasn't Williamson third the one that's like the one at the rep of like being the rowdy kids? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you were on
Absolutely.
Williamson third too, Tony?
Yes, absolutely. For 4 whole years, man.
Well, I was there like many years before you guys, and I remember like Williamson was always the troubled guys, and like the
Nah, bro.
strong dorm was always the good kids.
No, we had rock stars come out of Williamson third that year. I mean, there's
Mike
like professors
Ackerman,
at
Michael
Ozark right now that were Willie three guys. Mike
Michael
Ackerman,
DeFazio,
DeFazio, John Kerr
John
was up
Kerr. Yep.
there.
So at
All
some point they
professors
got
right now.
saved and
Oh,
got
wait,
pulled
wait, wait,
away.
wait. The president of Ozark was a Williamson guy. Oh, that's right.
Are you serious?
Yes, Matt
That's
Proctor is a
amazing.
Williamson
Chris
guy.
DeWelt. Yep.
Chris DeWelt, that's right. Which
Wow.
that
So
one's
like
fun because Chris DeWelt's dad and uncle preached at this church
in
here in
Really?
Williamson.
Princeton. Yeah, years back. And
Really? I
Chris
didn't
Chris
know
was
that.
born in Astoria, I believe.
It's like 3 degrees of
Uh,
separation from Ozark
Yeah,
Christian College. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
Chris, for hijacking your story.
Right,
So
right, right.
you're at college, you're in the National Guard, and what'd you study?
Which period?
Like,
I
what was
was
your major or whatever? Like, did you have like,
when I
did you know it was going to
started.
be what?
When I started, I thought it was going to be youth ministry. And
Everyone
so
thinks that.
that's what I pursued for the first about year and a half. And then Krista Welt and I became pretty close, and I ended up working under him for quite a while. So I traveled with him, and then I threw everything into missions at that point and changed my major to missions. And then before that was all said and done, I ended up finishing with a Bachelor in Christian Arts, emphasis in missions and youth ministry. And then I ended up doing some of the language classes and getting a third one as well.
But
So
you didn't finish for like years later, right? Like,
nope, I did not finish till 2012. So all my
oh,
peers had graduated, and I came to Oregon to plant a church with that Eric Nielsen
okay,
guy
so wait,
before
now
I
wait a
finished.
second. So this is like the literal story. Okay, so like I planted a church at 27. Okay, we start having some success. You didn't come like when we were at our rental place, right? You arrived when we already had the building.
Had just started in the building.
Okay, so I
Just
was probably like 28, and like the move is like back in the day, it's like you get 100 people, hire a youth pastor, you know. So we're
mm,
right there. I didn't know how to find a youth pastor. I'd barely been out of youth ministry myself for more than a year. So I post on like all the college boards, like job opportunities, and the only person that responded for a while was this guy named Chris Goetz. And he's super excited and he's like, I want the job. I'm ready to come. And I'm like, dude, you haven't even graduated college yet. Now, this is a total shift from like how I think now. Now I'd be like, quit college and come work for me. Get into ministry. But I'm like, dude, no, man. Like, you need to stay in college and like finish college. And I'm like, I don't want this guy. He doesn't make sense, and then like I had a couple of guys like kind of filter through and I interviewed him and it was just like this I'm telling the real story. They didn't want to work for me. They were like, no, like, and part of it is like, well, if you work for me, you're probably gonna have to raise some funds and this and this and this. And now I just be like, be bivocational. But I had like two great candidates, and if, I won't say their names, but they're both guys who went on to like work in pretty big churches and were pretty successful guys. And probably the best move they ever made was not to be my youth pastor. Uh, Probably to like tank their career. Chris barely escaped. So no one would work for me except this guy that I didn't want to hire. And it's not because I didn't like Chris. I'm just like, you need to finish Bible college. Like that was and then so I'm like, man, both of the people I was interviewing were like not interested. One was like, I'm not interested, but the other two were like, didn't want to work for me. And then Chris calls again. He's relentless. And I'm like, all right, like let's talk. And that's the story of like how Chris came to work for me he's the very first staff person I ever hired. And I apparently didn't drive him out of ministry. So
That's a
so
plus.
tell us the reason, Chris, like why in your young mind, why did you want to drop out of Bible college and go get right to work in churches in Oregon?
The name of the church was Adventure Christian Church, and I always believed that being a follower of Jesus should be an adventure. And I fell in love with the DNA of the church. I really did. I love the letting God love us and others through us mentality. I've been living that then and now. I just that has followed me, and it lined right up with what my heart of hearts and desire to follow Christ looked like. And this guy that liked to hike and told me stories about taking men's trips in the church, and I was like, that sounds like me. I want to, and Oregon is where I'm from, so I always had a heart to bring church to where I grew up, and there weren't a lot of churches where I grew up. When I came out to the Midwest, my word, some of these little towns had 13, 14 churches. I was like,
Yeah,
growing up in Oregon, I mean, we had a Mormon church, and I think we had a Church of Satan, and there was a
we
couple
had all
of
kinds. Yeah.
little bitty Christian churches, but there wasn't a lot going on out there. So I just
Now your
wanted to.
wife is from Kansas,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so she came out with you to like have her Northwest experience. And I was thinking when you just said that, I forgot we climbed Saddle Mountain on December
Yeah.
27th on my birthday, and it was snowing. And
Yep.
I think did we go to the top? I feel like we
We
did.
had to turn back because the snow was deeper than our
Oh, I
waist. We
think
were
when we
having a hard
got to
time
that part,
walking.
like the saddle, like where you have to go up that really steep part, and it was pretty snowy, and we were sliding around. We're like,
Weak,
maybe we should go home.
weak,
I know.
weak.
It was like one of those. it was that wet blowing snow,
That's how it is up here
blowing
on
in
the
your
coast.
face. Yeah, I was like, it was
Uh,
horrible. And we weren't really
that's
ready. I
how it
think we
is.
hadn't prepared very
We didn't
well.
have
I have
clothes.
I have Saddle Mountain tattooed on my forearm here.
Nice. Love
I've
it.
been to the top of Saddle Mountain several times for the record.
So have I.
That day, which was my birthday, I decided I didn't want to die on my birthday, so we turned around. But
That's a
yeah,
good
we did
idea.
some of that. So
And
Chris,
I was
obviously,
hiking
is that
along, shivering, and I was happy that he said, "Hey, man, I think I want to call it." I was like, "Oh, really? Are you sure?" Thank God.
yeah, we're so close. Yeah. So obviously, you had a time with us in Oregon, and part of it a church plant and a youth pastor. And I know there's some reasons, family and the drawback to close to family and stuff like that. Natasha's got a wonderful family that's very close. And I know that that pull to go back home was part of it. But you end up back in Kansas, and the first ministry back in Kansas was Garnett, right?
When we first came back, I actually spent a year out of ministry. The biggest reason was we had lost our son when we were out there in
Right.
Oregon, and that was just a we
Yeah.
needed a little season out of ministry to heal,
Yeah.
and that's what we did. We went to a church up in actually a church plant up in Shawnee, Kansas,
Oh,
and a guy named Brad Fogo was on
right.
staff at
Yeah.
that church. That's where my connection with Brad started from. Speaking of my tall son, hey, thanks, bud. Uh, anyway, so Brad Fogo mentored me and Natasha for the year and helped us to find some healing. And we got to volunteer there at the church. I still spoke quite a bit, but I worked for a company called Ryan Lawn and Tree. And after he had hired me to help work with big tree falling, which I love doing, always have, he was like, wait a minute, you're a pastor, right? I was like, yeah. He had me speak at their Toastmasters club, and I shared a sermon rather than a normal speech.
Good
And
for
he
you. That's
goes, "Would
awesome.
you do that regularly?" I was like, "Uh-huh." So 3 days a week, I shared a little mini sermon every third or every other morning. And he had a bunch of his staff come in early, and they just thought that was great. I loved it, so he started using me like a chaplain for the tree company, and that was it was a healing season for me. It was nice to be able to still share Christ and not have all the extra stuff that goes along with ministry. That was really a struggle for me at that season. So
Yeah.
God called
So
us into ministry down in Garnett, Kansas,
Garnett, okay.
and now we've been in Garnett for about 17 years. Yeah, we started as the youth minister, and then now I'm the senior minister. So
Hmm.
So
And just as a
go ahead,
reminder,
Tony. Yeah.
Garnett, that's where Natasha's from. Is that right?
no, she's from
Oh, okay.
Thayer. Her
Oh,
parents
Thayer.
actually
Okay.
managed the Hidden Haven Christian Camp
Oh,
down
right,
an
right.
hour south of us, and that's the camp
Yep.
district we're a part of. And I still,
Okay.
in fact, I'm the dean of camp starting Sunday for high school camp down there.
Oh, great. Great. Cool.
So you've kind of become like through this journey of like Bible college and working in McMinnville with me and then on to Garnett, you've kind of become kind of like in a way like that iconic Midwest small town long-term pastor. Um, so tell us, we're gonna take a break here in a minute. We'll kind of save the rest for part two, but tell us just a little bit about a guy growing up on the West Coast, um, living in Oregon, working in Oregon, and then all of a sudden you're in a town of, is it 3,000?
3,500 on a good year.
Okay, so
Hmm.
back then it was probably 3,000.
Mhm.
So you walk into a town of a few thousand people in the middle of Kansas farm fields. Um, what was that like? Was it like a culture shock to like move into that small community?
That is the correct word. Culture shock. I
Hmm.
had no clue what to expect when I came into small rural America. They do life different here. They see life different here.
Hmm.
The way people respond and react is just different than where I grew up in the grocery store in Oregon. Uh, People don't spend a lot of time stopping and talking with each other. Out here, my wife won't send me to the grocery store because I will be there for 2 hours talking. Need
Yeah.
briskets right now.
That's
It's just
hilarious. We went out to
different.
dinner last week and we were in this restaurant and I mean Chris stayed at the table for the most part, but I mean I think he talked to like 15, 20 people in the hour and a half we were at this restaurant because everybody knows him. He's
That's
a
amazing.
long-term pastor in this community. And I think that's part of like why we want to do this podcast, man, is like there is a need and there is a value for faithful men to lead congregations and small communities. And for any Bible college kids listening, they're going to hear on this next episode, you kind of talk about what life is like. But every kid that's graduating Bible college seems like wants to land a job at the mega church and be on the big staff in the big city and have all the bells and whistles. And there is a kind of life available for people who are willing to go to small towns. And I said this to you when I was there last week. It's a quality of life that I think people way underestimate in terms of like a place to raise a family, a place to
Mhm.
put down roots, a place to really like you have the ability to impact 3,500 people
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
way that a guy at a church in a town of millions has no ability to impact that
Right.
community.
Right.
And that's what we'll get into for the next one. So why don't we hit pause? Do you guys have any final words for this one, and we'll wrap and then do the next one?
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to talk about that.
yeah.
Let's go ahead and do our outro, and then we'll kind of get into our next one. So, if you like what we're doing, please like or subscribe wherever you watch or listen. If you're interested in Small Town Network, you can find us online at smalltownnetwork.com. And if you believe in the importance of planting disciple-making churches in smaller communities, we'd love you to consider partnering with us in prayer and financial support. You've been listening to the Small Town Pastor Podcast.